Kaylin Yuma.
And my name is TJ Hoff.
And my name is Sanjay Perrycook.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a holiday that serves multiple purposes.
It honors the total legacy of Dr. King and focuses on the issue of civil rights.
It highlights the use of nonviolence to promote change and calls people into public services.
But before we learn more about Dr. King's legacy and the heroes and heroines that we celebrate today, let's honor the nation that we all belong to.
Please rise for the Star-Spangled Banner, performed by Alexia Bush with aerial footage by Sanjay Perrycook.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we felt at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulty and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
Hi, this is Isaac Schultz and my presentation on Scott Joplin. So this is Scott Joplin. People call him the king of ragtime piano. He was born November 24th, 1868. That's almost 151 years ago. But he sadly passed away April 1st of 1917. He was only 48. When I'm dead, 25 years, people are going to begin to recognize me. He was a great piano artist and created ragtime piano, which is a jazz and American popular music, which is from like 1899 to 1917. He created the Maple Leaf Rag, which is often played and heard around the world. He earned a Grammy for his song The Entertainer, and he played many shows and performed often. One day the maple leaf will make me the king of ragtime composers, in which he actually that did, because that is played all over the world. He really was the king of ragtime piano. He's taught me to keep pushing forward through all the hard times, because he is an African American living in a really harsh time period, and he pushed through all that adversity and rose up, and now people are still playing his music almost 150 years after he was born. He really is a king. He and his wife Lottie moved in 1916 when he was done with his career, but Scott had contracted a deadly disease and had to be taken to the hospital. He later passed in 1917. It is never right to play the ragtime fast.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Booker, and this is my presentation on Katherine Johnson, the American mathematician. This is her backstory. Katherine Johnson was an American mathematician for NASA. She was born in the year 1980 and died the year 2020. She was 101 years old. Johnson calculated and analyzed the flight paths of many spacecrafts. Her work helped send astronauts to the moon. Math's just there. You're either right or you're wrong. That's what I like about it. This is one of Katherine Johnson's famous quotes. It impacted many people in a positive way and made many people look up to her. Katherine G. Johnson was a NASA mathematician who helped send the first astronauts into space. She is one of the most celebrated Black women in space science. As a Black woman working for NASA in the 1950s and 60s, Johnson overcame social boundaries and racial discrimination.
My problem was to answer questions. And I did that to the best of my ability at all times. I liked what I was doing. I liked work. I liked the stars and stories we were telling. And it was a joy.
I think it was pretty well known that Katherine Johnson was an unusual person with an incredible gift. Her mathematical skills were just phenomenal.
Katherine Johnson's story is an amazing story, and it had an impact on my life. Two things that just come to mind is her persistence and her determination.
The story of Katherine Johnson and the other mathematicians that worked with her definitely had an impact on my career. It's people like her and others that came along with her that paved the way for people like me to become astronauts.
I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I am Trayman. This is my Jackie Robinson presentation. We remember Jackie Robinson because he broke the color barrier in baseball and became a trailblazer for other African-American baseball players. A famous quote he had is, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives." Jackie Robinson was born on January 31st, 1919, but sadly died October 24th, 1972. He joined the Dodgers in 1947, but retired in 1956. He broke records like being the first African-American to play Major League Baseball and more. He has a movie about him called 42, and this is a video about him.
Born January 31st, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia, Jack Roosevelt Robinson was the youngest of 5 siblings. He followed his older brother Mac into athletics.
Mac went off and he competed in the 1936 Olympics. This is an athlete who had won a medal under the eye of Adolf Hitler. He came back to Pasadena and Mac Robinson could only find work as a garbage man. That's something that Jackie Robinson never forget.
Robinson was a star athlete at Pasadena Junior College and became the first UCLA student to win varsity letters in 4 sports: basketball, football, track, and baseball.
He was a local tennis champion. He was a local football stud. He was a great track star. For Jackie Robinson, baseball was really almost the last thing he was great at. He was great at everything. He could have done anything.
While in the Army, Robinson was arrested for refusing to move to the back of a segregated bus. Robinson fought a court-martial and was eventually given an honorable discharge.
Jackie Robinson was sick and tired of the U.S. Army, and the U.S. Army felt that they had a problem on their hands with Lieutenant Robinson, so they agreed that he would be honorably discharged.
With the Negro Leagues as his only opportunity to play professional baseball, Robinson joined the Kansas City Monarchs in 1945. That same year, he was given a life-changing invitation by Branch Rickey of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
There were players in the Negro League that were just as good, if not better, than Jackie Robinson. But Branch Rickey understood that he needed more than just a superb baseball player. He needed someone who had flawless and impeccable character, and he found that person in Jackie Robinson.
Despite harsh opposition, Robinson was selected as the first Rookie of the Year, became the first man in the league in 26 years to steal his way around the bases, and in 1955, he helped the Brooklyn Dodgers win the World Series against the New York Yankees.
The valor with which Jackie Robinson responded to the jeers and the hatred and the bigoted remarks and the catcalls is one of the great silent portraits in American history. Under that hail of threats and epithets, he would walk into the batter's box. And about a little over the third of the time, because I believe he batted a 330 something that year, he'd get a hit. That's what he did. He certainly didn't cower. He certainly didn't flinch, and there were a lot of beanballs thrown at him.
Jackie Robinson wasn't just a great symbol. He was a great baseball player. He led the Brooklyn Dodgers to 6 pennants when he was there. This is a Brooklyn Dodger team that was called the Bums because they couldn't win. Jackie Robinson led them, and part of it was his fire. His fire kept them going.
Shortly after being traded to the New York Giants, Robinson retired from baseball in 1957 and became a business executive.
After Jackie Robinson left baseball, his fight wasn't over. I mean, he continued to fight for civil rights. He was a member of the NAACP's upper management, campaigned for them, campaigned with Dr. King to try and integrate a lot of America. Also, opened up a bank in Harlem. I mean, this was a guy who this meant more to him than just his legacy as a baseball player.
He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962 and later died from a heart attack on October 24, 1972. In 2005, Jackie Robinson was honored with the Congressional Gold Medal.
The story of Jackie Robinson changed the literal complexion of the game. It changed the complexion of images that we saw in black and white photos in newspapers and on television. It put a black man at the center of the story of America. And I think we've been an imperfect but infinitely better society ever since.
And a famous quote he had is, there's not an American in this country free until every one of us is free.
I have a dream today.
Everyone, my name is Kira Moody, and I will be doing a presentation on Colin Powell, who was the first African-American U.S. Secretary of State and a 4-star general of the U.S. Army. He was born in April 5th, 1937 in Harlem, New York, and he was the son of Jamaican immigrants Luther and Maud Powell. He was educated in New York, going to normal New York public schools, but in college he served in the Reserves Officers Training Course. Powell had many military achievements, including serving in the Vietnam War, becoming a national security advisor, and in 1989, he was appointed chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Powell was the first and only African-American man to be appointed Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is pretty amazing. It just goes to show that hard work, regardless of race, pays off. And a famous quote by him is, "There's no end to the good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit."
Today I will be presenting on John Lewis, who was an American
Politician, statesman, and civil rights activist and leader who served in the United States House of Representatives. John Lewis, in full, John Robert Lewis, was born February 1940 near Troy, Alabama, U.S. Died July 17, 2020, Atlanta, Georgia. He was best known for his chairmanship of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and for leading the march that was halted by police violence on Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in 1965, a landmark event of history of the civil rights movement that became known as Bloody Sunday. In addition to numerous other honors he received, Lewis was awarded the Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolent Peace Prize in 1965, the John F. Kennedy and Profound Courage Award in 2001, and the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, and the Spring Garden Medal in 2002. In 2011, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In July 2020, after a battle with pancreatic cancer, Lewis died, called the consigned to Congress. He became the first American lawmaker to lie in the state and veranda of the U.S. Capitol. At his funeral at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Lewis was eulogized by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a pioneer of nonviolent resistance, James Lawson, and three former presidents, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. Obama, for whom was an inspiration, a hero, called Lewis a man of unbreakable perseverance, and said that he embodied that most of America's ideas. The idea that any of us ordinary people without rank or wealth or title or fame can somehow point out the imperfections of this nation and come together and challenge the status quo and decide that it is in our power to remake this country that we love until it's more aligned with our highest ideas. One of his quotes was, "Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe in. In my life, and I've done, all I can do is demonstrate the way of peace and the way of love, and nonviolence is more excellent way. Now it's your turn to let the freedom ring."
Brown baby. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom and we want it now.
He was, until the end, an optimist.
When people tell me nothing has changed, I just feel like saying, come and walk in my shoes. I will show you.
But the death of George Floyd was a deadly reminder that the work he dedicated his life to wasn't over.
I kept saying to myself, how many more? How many more young black men will be murdered?
Just last month, Georgia Congressman John Lewis appeared at the Black Lives Matter mural, not far from the White House. In an interview with Gayle King, he remained forever hopeful.
It's another step down a very, very long road toward freedom, justice for all humankind.
Throughout his life, there was a gentleness about him, peppered, though, with tenacity. He was arrested dozens of times for acts of peaceful civil disobedience.
I met Rosa Parks in 1957 when I was 17. 1958, I met Dr. King. And these two individuals inspired me to get in trouble. And I've been getting in good trouble, necessary trouble ever since.
We're marching to our state capital to dramatize to our nation and to the world our determination to win first-class citizenship.
In March of 1965, he led the march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
That march will not continue.
He almost paid for his convictions that day with his life on what history will forever call Bloody Sunday.
I was the first person to be hit, and I still have the scar on my forehead. I thought I was going to down this bridge.
Unlike Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, John Lewis wasn't frozen in history. He was a living presence, forever reminding us that we could do better, we should do better, and in his mind, will do better.
I really believe if we get it right in America, maybe it can serve as a model for the rest of the world.
This is my hope. This is the faith. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
I am presenting Amanda Gorman, who is a famous poet activist. Born March 7th, 1998 in Los Angeles, California. By April 2017, at the age of 19, Amanda became the first National Youth Poet Laureate in the United States history. She was raised by her single mother, Joanne Wicks, a sixth grade English teacher in Watts, with her two siblings. Amanda has a twin sister who is an activist and filmmaker. Amanda Gorman grew up with a speech impediment. Amanda Gorman is an American poet and activist. Her work focuses on issues of oppression, feminism, and race. When she was 16, she was named the first ever Los Angeles youth poet. Amanda Gorman is reported to be the youngest poet to read at a presidential inauguration.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Completing their research on these heroes and heroines, Ms. Linker sat down with our student panel to discuss their takeaways of what was learned.
Let's take a look and see what they said.
The first question that we brainstormed last week was, how have the people that we've discussed in today's assembly, right, those 6 names, how have they shaped you and your thinking?
I feel like I'm okay, be more positive and think like come together with like my friends and stuff. I guess I don't really know. I have something like how like when I was doing my thing, I kind of connected with the guy, Scott Joplin.
How so?
Yeah, so basically you already know he likes music, obviously, and I kind of like music too. And some of his piano things that he wrote, I kind of like him, and I've heard him before too. Yeah, which is really cool because he was almost like 151 years. He's still like around, and like he's still like people still play his music all the time.
I kind of wrote like a whole like thing, like a whole paragraph. So, I mean, basically like the main part of it all is like, I think that these role models, they kind of just like say that we can do whatever we want, like whatever we put our minds to without like worrying about like things that kind of like get in the way.
Martin Luther King made me, I guess, more determined in some ways. Like some of his quotes and the things he did made me want to do more, I guess I could say.
Colin Powell, I guess he kind of made me want to push myself more in like the right directions.
Can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Like after doing a slide, I've decided that I want to like push myself physically, like working out more and stuff.
Taking care of your body and pushing your body to do some things that you haven't done before, yeah?
Amanda Gorman, she's like a huge inspiration because like she's so young, you know, for what she has done so far with her life. She's just made me like want to become better.
I like to write, and so just like how the way with her words is just really really inspirational for a lot of people I know, and it's just really cool to listen to her words.
How can we celebrate our differences? There's a pretty diverse group of people having this conversation, so how can we celebrate our differences? Here specifically at Harbor Ridge, actually.
Can I go first? One way we can celebrate our differences is just let people be people. Like, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian. People are still people. We still have pretty much the same number of organs. We are the same species. We are all human. We just need to accept the fact that, yes, we have differences, but those differences don't make us any less human.
I think we just need to be nice. I think we just need to be kind and happy.
Just be respectful to everyone and enjoy everyone's differences.
I was hopeful that maybe we could share one way that we can be more tolerant.
Can I answer? I basically think that like people, we have our own opinions and like preferences. So I think like just like us, If we just like acknowledge that we all have those in like a kind way, then like not only will the environment be more tolerant, but it'll also be more open-minded to new things. I mean, I like to draw and I like to like do all kinds of sort of art related things. Like other people, they might not like to do that. They might like to play sports. So like we can still like interact with each other and like be respectful just because we like to do different things.
I agree. Just be more open-minded and non-biased to people, and especially those opinions. Like you can have differing opinions. Having differing opinions is fine. You just can't be rude about it, because being rude about it is not nice.
For sure. I know the people that you guys have done all of these flights for certainly have overcome a lot of adversities and troublesome times, right? Simply because of the color of their skin specifically. So I was hoping that maybe we could just address that issue for sure. How can we be more tolerant of people who look different from us?
I think that tolerant means basically like just like understanding that people like are different from you in a sense, and that like just being like okay with it.
So I'm wondering if there's a practical thing that we could do at Harbor Ridge to be kind and to be nice and not to be scared to do those things, because I think sometimes fear or unknown or our own like, what are they going to think of me attitude affects our kindness and our niceness. Does that make sense?
I guess putting yourself in those shoes, like you don't know what troubles they have gone through. You don't know what's happening. And if, for example, if you were rude to someone, how would you feel if they were rude to you?
I think like don't be selfish. Like you're thinking like, oh, what are my friends gonna think if I be nice to this kid? Like who cares? Like just go and do it. Like it's not gonna. What are you gonna lose a couple friends for being a nice human being? Like I don't know. Just guess don't be selfish.
I would also like to add that like along with not being like selfish and stuff, like if you're gonna like again like if you're gonna lose like two of your friends for being a genuinely nice person, then maybe it was like for the better or something. I would also say that like if you don't have to put yourself out there to like make yourself known to be a nice person, like if you don't exactly feel like opening up too much, then you don't have to. Just like as long as you don't like make others feel bad just because you also don't. Like there's also things you can do to make yourself feel better.
At the end of this assembly, what do you hope your classmates hear or get from our message?
Maybe that we should be proud of our differences and we should celebrate others.
Understand that we're all human, no matter the color of our skin or how we act or our personality. We're all human and nothing can change that.
I hope that like they just like listened to what like we had to say, and also like take that information and our opinions on this conversation and use that for like the better of the school.
Thanks, Romney, for coming.
My name is Adam Massery, and I'll be presenting on Martin Luther King Jr. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Now, I really like this quote because of its meaning, and the meaning being, instead of spending all our time and effort focusing on our differences, we should really be focusing on what unites us as humans. 3 interesting facts about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was assassinated 39 years later on the 4th of April, 1969 in Memphis, Tennessee. King went to Boston University at the age of 15 and received his PhD, which is like the highest level of degree possible in systematic theology. In 1964, he received a Nobel Peace Prize for his exceptional leadership in the principles of peace. At the time, he was the youngest person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Martin Luther King Jr. was a civil rights leader like no other. He persisted through everything till the mournful day of his death, and even then, he and his cogent work were remembered. And after his death, the King assassination riots began. The riots went on for 10 days, and during those 10 days, 43 protesters died, 27,000 protesters were arrested, and the Civil Rights Act, along with many others, were passed, essentially equalizing all Americans. King's dream speech would play a very important role in helping pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and the pivotal Selma to Montgomery March that he led in 1965 would provide momentum for the passage later that year of the Voting Rights Act. The speech would also earn him a Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Thank you for your time.
We say today, my friends,
that in spite of the difficulty and frustrations of the moment, we still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
We have a dream today.
We have a dream today.
We have a dream today.
We have a dream today.